This is the perfect example of how the media spreads propaganda by manipulating our emotions. Take a look at these two stories from the New York Times. They both cover the death of young children. The only difference is that one's about Israeli children and the other is about a Palestinian child. Notice anything different about how you feel when reading these headlines? If you feel a little bit sadder, maybe even a bit mad when you read the first headline and not the second, that's the point. The difference is summed up by Osselrod on Twitter, who pointed this out initially. One side gets the benefit of emotion, the other doesn't. The thing about effective propaganda is that it's just as much about what you say as it is about how you say it. The idea is to be able to report similar events, but make the reader feel different things when reading it. So that way, a news outlet can seem impartial and like they're covering both sides equally. But the reader is still forming very specific feelings about what's going on that are in line with the state narrative. And this happens all over the West. Here's the BBC doing basically the exact same thing. And you could argue that that's just the headline, but keep in mind, most people don't read past the headline. But even if you do, you'll find the same patterns there too. Like in the BBC article about the Israeli hostages, it's an emotional tale about Israel's collective grief and sorrow, and a reinforcement that the H group is solely to blame. But for Hind Rajab, the Palestinian girl, it's much drier. And even when we learn that the IOF tanks intentionally targeted Hind and her rescuers, it's all qualified at the end with the Israeli narrative that justifies those actions. But we shouldn't be too surprised. Both the New York Times and BBC have been called out for biased reporting about Palestine, to the point that some believe there could be a case against them for whitewashing genocide. Obviously, there's no difference between the value of the life of a Palestinian child or an Israeli child, but they aren't reported the same, and that's by design. The difference in language is all intentional. It's supposed to manipulate our emotions and get us to feel what they want us to feel about these two events. Because the majority of people's political views are not formed from just facts. Emotion plays a huge role in shaping someone's views, arguably even more than facts. Mainstream media is very aware of this, and they're constantly using these tricks to manipulate us. That's how even the most horrible crimes can somehow become acceptable, and even make people forget that Israel has killed tens of thousands of children over the past 16 months, and many of their own hostages, whether that's from airstrikes or even poison gas. This is just another dimension of media literacy that's critical for us all to be aware of, because it's a lot more subtle than facts being misreported or not reported at all. If we want to make sense of everything that's happening in the world and arrive at something resembling the truth, it's not just about trying to figure out what they aren't telling us. It's also about being aware of what they're trying to make us feel. And if you want help spotting media bias, another good page to check out are my friends over at Newscord. They're doing some awesome work exposing bias on their page and even have a really cool app. And if you want more political analysis and hidden historical knowledge, be sure to follow me and check out theconsciouscitizens.org, where I talk about this and a lot more. You can sign up for free in my link tree, and it's also a great way to support my videos for as little as $2 a month.